Hello and welcome to Mysteries of the Kingdom of Heaven. My name is Raj Singh. This is the final part of the two-part series where we're looking at Genesis 19 verse 8, where Lot said, I have two daughters. We're going to begin this with looking at the characters, Abraham, Sarah, Lot, and the women in Lot's life. Then we're going to go to Lot with his two daughters in the cave, and let's see what the Word of God reveals and what the destiny was for Lot's two daughters. If you watch this video, Lot, I have two daughters, Genesis 19 verse 8, and why did God save just Lot? It actually fills in all the missing links and makes the story complete. I just want to do a quick character comparison of Uncle Abraham and nephew Lot. We can see in Genesis 18 verse 1 and 2, when Abraham, in verse 2, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground. Now, these videos that I'm making are about seeing, hearing, and understanding. Without any introduction by God or the two angels, Abraham knew that he was in the presence of God and his two angels. Now let's look at nephew Lot in Genesis 19 verse 1. And at the end of the verse, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. Again, nephew Lot bowed his face toward the ground. Again, there was no introduction by the two angels. And so it just proves the character of the uncle and the nephew. Okay, let's do a character comparison of the women in the life of Abraham and in the life of nephew Lot. Genesis 18 verse 6, and Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. Nephew Lot, let's see the women in his life. Genesis 19 verse 3, and he pressed upon them greatly, the angels, and they turned in unto him and entered into his house, and he made them a feast and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. This shows that it was Lot that did the cooking in his house. Verse 8, behold, now I have 2 daughters which have not known man. This verse here shows, when you read the rest of it, that these 2 daughters were in the house when Lot did all the cooking. However, they helped Lot not do any of the cooking. Verse 15, and when the morning arose, when the angels hastened Lot, saying, arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters which are here. Now, this now proves that not only were Lot's 2 daughters in the house when Lot did all the cooking, so was his wife. This shows the difference of character type that Sarah was versus Lot's wife and his 2 daughters. What does this also show? This shows that in Lot's house, Lot did the housework. Now, if you guys, someone is going to say, oh, this is okay now, and then all I'm doing is not saying what is okay now versus what is not okay now. I am just showing the trail of evidence which shows what kind of women were Lot's women. When visitors came, they did not bother to look after them at all. They saw Lot doing it, they left him to do it. Whereas Sarah, Abraham's wife, she went and looked after the visitors that walked in to Abraham's house. Let's now do a character comparison on the names of the woman in Uncle Abraham's life and the women in nephew Lot's life. In Genesis 18 verse 13, we see God himself call Sarah by her name. But notice we never get to know the name of Lot's wife, nor the names of Lot's daughters. We saw in my video, John 19, verse 26 to 27, two of the most misunderstood Bible verses in part 6 at the sepulchre, how neither the two angels nor God knew Mary by her name. And why was this? It was because Mary was not doing the will of God, and therefore God and his angels knows you not. Likewise, we see that neither the two angels, nor God, nor we ever get to know the names of Lot's wife or his two daughters. This proves that unless you know God or you are not doing the will of God, he will not know you not. So this is another evidence that proves that Lot's wife and his daughters were rejected by God. We will now skip to Genesis 19 verse 30. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his two daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar. And he dwelt in a cave, he and his two daughters. Verse 31, and the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. So what does this mean? There is not a man in the earth to come in unto us. According to the elder daughter, there is no other man on the face of the earth apart from their father, which we know is not true, because we know that Abraham was there with God doing his so-called negotiation, and Abraham with his entourage had not had many people with him. So this is what the elder daughter is now thinking after God obliterated everyone from Sodom and Gomorrah. She now says there's no other human male of the male species left on earth. Verse 32. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. So let's look at verse 32 closer. Let us make our father drink wine. All of a sudden, you can see the innocence of these two are no more. If you have to make someone drink wine, you can tell that the person you are going to make drink wine is not a person who usually drinks. So how would they do this if it is not using what they have learned in the city of Sodom? And now she is saying, we will lie with him now. that we may preserve seed of our father. So let's look at that. So far, they have been lying back to front. And by lying back to front, you know man not, and therefore you cannot preserve seed. But now, these two not so innocent daughters are going to lie front to front, because the only way you can preserve seed is lying front to front, and they are now going to all of a sudden preserve the seed of our father. So let's see where this leads to. Just want to make 3 quick points about Genesis 31 and 32. First, after God saves Lot's daughters from Sodom, where their husbands were roasted and their mother was turned into a pillar of salt, Lot's 2 daughters felt that God was not able to provide them with 2 men for them to have children with. Number 2, with the life that Sodom and Gomorrah created, with the gang activity, etc., you can see that there is no loyalty from husband to wife and wife towards their husband. And you saw there was no remorse. And the 2 daughters, they quite easily just walked out on their husbands without going to ask them to go with them, as did their father. So you can see this kind of lifestyle is actually breaks the family structure. Third, when the daughters said, there is not a man on them to come in unto us to preserve the seed, it shows that they knew how to preserve the seed, except they chose not to preserve seed until they have found themselves in the cave with their father. Let us look at Genesis 19 verse 32 closer, and in particular the part where the sister says that we may preserve seed of our father. What are they saying? Is it the sister's job to preserve the seed of their father, or is it the sister's job to preserve the seed of their husbands? Now, while they were married, as we can see from the meaning of sodomy, it is impossible for you to preserve seed. So, it is this father who, through his son, who has the seed of the father, that preserves the seed of his father. When he gets married, his father's seed flows down the line through him into his wife. It is not the daughter's job or the sisters who do this perceived preservation. Their preservation comes through their husbands. So now these sisters were going to play God. And this leads us to Luke 8 verse 11. Now the parable is this: the seed is the word of God, which leads us to John 1 verse 1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What does this mean? It means YShua, the Word of God, is the seed of life. So the sisters were now going to play God. Verse 33, and they made their father drink wine that night. Let's look at the meaning of made. Make, made, makes, making. And let's look at the meaning number 2. To produce, cause to exist or happen, to bring about. And the firstborn went in and lay down with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down with Lot, nor when she arose. Did she lay down with Lot, or did Lot lay down with her? If Lot was guilty of incest, as many YouTube videos say, and that God allowed it, then Lot would make his daughters drink wine, and they would perceive not when Lot lay down, nor when Lot arose. Lot never took advantage of his 2 daughters by making them drink wine and then taking advantage of them. If you look at the meaning of sodomy, and especially the words underlined in red, these 2 daughters of Lot knew the art of making men drink wine and how to handle men after they were drunk. And it seems all of a sudden they knew how to preserve seed. Remember in Genesis 19 verse verse 8, Lot says they knew not man, but they certainly knew man. In man's eyes, Lot was guilty as charged of incest. In God's eyes, Lot was innocent as charged. Thank God there is a God and not man that passes final judgment. Verse 34, and it came to pass on the tomorrow, that the firstborn said unto the younger, behold, I lay last night with my father. So I lay with my father, I therefore am guilty. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and thou go in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. Now it's the younger daughter's turn to play God and preserve the seed of her father, when it's the daughter's role to preserve the seed of her husband and not her father. Verse 35, and they made their father drink wine. Their father did not make them drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with Lot, and he perceived not when she lay down next to Lot, nor when she arose. So from here it is clear that Lot never got his daughters drunk, and Lot never took advantage of them. If you say that because Lot's wife was not there and Lot needed some intimacy, then it is clear this was not the case. Verse 36, thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father Lot. And so we can see And we can see clearly that Lot is innocent as charged. So let us see what the Word of God, God Himself, says about what the two daughters of Lot did. And do you think they will be blessed, or if they will be cursed? Leviticus 18 verse 6. None of you shall approach to any that is near of kin to him, to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord. Verse 7. The nakedness of thy father, or the nakedness of thy mother, shalt thou not uncover. How do you think Lot's two daughters preserved the seed of their father? Was it by covering their nakedness or uncovering it? And you can see verse 8 and verse 9. And you can read that in your own time. But this is what the Lord, the Word of God Himself says about what Lot's two daughters did. Just want to make an observation about Genesis 19, verse 34 to verse 36. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said to the younger. So we can see that the elder daughter came up with this idea, and she is the leader, and she is leading the younger daughter astray. From here, we can now see that it was the elder daughter that more than likely led the younger daughter into the act of sodomy. Now, which leads us to note that just because someone has led us astray does not mean that we are innocent. We are guilty as charged. So let's see who are Lot's sons, meaning his grandsons or his grandchildren. In Genesis 19 verse 36, we find out that Lot's sons or his grandsons were childed by Lot himself. Verse 37, and the firstborn bare a son and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. Verse 38, and the younger, she also bare a son and called his name Ben-ammi. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. So who are Lot's sons? Because if it's unto this day, it means, as the Word of God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, it means that until this day we can trail and see who the Moabites and who the Ammonites are. Which leads us to Zephaniah 2, verse 8. I have heard the reproach of Moab and the revilings of the children of Ammon, whereby they have reproached my people and magnified themselves against their border. Verse 9, therefore as I live, saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, surely Moab shall be as Sodom, and the children of Ammon as Gomorrah. So what does this mean? Therefore as I live. We know that as it says in Hebrews 3 verse 8, YShua Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever, which if God is there forever, so is Sodom and Gomorrah. Because of the actions of Lot's two daughters, even though God obliterated Sodom and Gomorrah, it will be there forever. And John 1:1, the word of God has spoken, and so be it. Zephaniah 2 verse 8 and 9 has proved the practice of sodomy today continues in the world today through the Moabites, and the practice of incest has continued to the children of Ammon who are from Gomorrah. From all the video evidence in YouTube and in church, man has judged Lot guilty on both counts. Man has judged Lot guilty of sentencing his two daughters to be gang raped by the men of Sodom. In Genesis 19 verse 8, Lot says, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Man has judged Lot guilty of incest, or that God has allowed incest in this case. In Genesis 19 verse 31, the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us. And in verse 32, the elder daughter said, Let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve the seed of our father. Thank God there is a God like our God, who has judged Lot innocent as charged on both counts. This video has proved, as we have seen in the world today, the guilty are charged innocent and the innocent are charged guilty. The video evidence about this subject on YouTube from the men of God in the house of God has also proved that even they are unable to pass judgment. Which brings us to 2 Peter 2 verse 4. God delivered just Lot. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, verse 5, and spared not the old world, verse 6, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, making them an example unto those that should live ungodly to this day through the actions of Lot's daughters in verse 6 and verse 7, and delivered just Lot. Delivered just Lot. The two sons-in-laws obliterated in the city of Sodom. The word of God has proved that his wife was also practicing sodomy, because when she looked back, she turned into a pillar of salt. Then we saw the two daughters who you could say are the walking dead. Even though they lived, they were not saved. Verse 8, For that righteous man dwelling among them, in seeing and hearing, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. You can see why was Lot saved, as we did in the other video, because he could see, hear, and understand. It's as complicated as that. And we can see from this video how difficult it is to see, hear, and understand. For God delivered just one out of Sodom. Abraham negotiated from 50 down to 10, but only one was saved. And then from there, sodomy has flourished worldwide. 2 Peter 2 verse 7, and God delivered just Lot. Just Lot. Why did God deliver just Lot? Because just Lot was just. He was a just man. In Genesis 19 verse 1, we see that Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. He was at the gate. He was not in the inner city, which had the inner soul of the city. Lot never belonged in Sodom. He was there just because of his family. which leads us to Isaiah 46 verse 9. And the last part of that verse, I am God and there is none like me. Verse 10, declaring the end from the beginning, from ancient times. What does this mean? This means that God knew who Lot's daughters were, and he knew what they were going to do. And that's why when we skip to 2 Peter 2 verse 6, and we look at the end of that verse, and making them an ensample, which means an example unto those that should live live ungodly. So God knew what Lot's daughters was going to do. So he left an example of those who will be practicing sodomy, that this is how it will end for you. Which takes us to 2 Peter 2 verse 9. The Lord knoweth how to deliver the godly out of temptations, which means even if you're placed in that city which promotes ungodly ways, God, and you stay righteous, God will deliver you out of temptations. You've been watching Mysteries of the Kingdom of Heaven. My name is Raj Singh. If you like these videos, like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is the final part of the two-part series where we looked at Genesis 19 verse 8, where Lot said, I have 2 daughters. These videos are based on Matthew 13 verse 10 to 13, and to encourage you, as is said in verse 13, to see, to hear, and to understand. We hope that these videos do encourage you to connect much closer to God. Remember, you don't need me, you don't need man, you just need God. God bless.